Hi, this is Laren Thomas of Knife Steel Nerds, and you're listening to the Bladeology podcast.
All right, we're going to jump into it like we do every week. Welcome to another episode of the Bladeology podcast. We're going to be recording episode 30 tonight. We do have our original host lineup, and we are on with a guest this week. This is the vocal representation of Jeremiah Burbank from PVK Vegas.
Nick Shuprin of NCC Knives.
Elijah Isham of Isham Bladeworks.
And this is Dave Brown from Vasana Metal Design, or Bladeworks, I should say.
Awesome. Very cool. Dave, thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, it's an honor. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This is it's been a long time coming. I know we're all huge fans of your work. Follow you on Instagram.
Likewise.
What are you working on this week? Tell us a little bit of what's on the bench.
Well, I'm working on some wood right now. A couple of wood sayas for a Tonto and a Wakizashi combo matching. And I've got. I'm sorry, someone just came by. I'm working with Dion Damascus, the Krumai. It's a 440 SS 1095 Damascus clad with a 1095 core, and it's got a copper shim in it. So yeah, it's something different and interesting. I haven't etched them yet, so we'll see how they turn out.
Damn. Okay, that sounds pretty far out. I gotta say, I don't know. I see a lot of Hamones in your work, and Damascus seems to be a rarity. Is that just by choice or availability?
I've kind of been disappointed for the most part with the pattern consistency. I mean, I have got a couple of really nice billets from Chad Nichols, the XHP Core low layer boomerang, which is really nice. But I won't say any names or anything, but I don't know if they're selling all the good stuff to their friends, and then since they don't know me, they're giving me the ones that are inconsistent. But inconsistent cores, pattern variations, whatnot. I am really impressed with Dama Steel, though. That stuff is really trick. Really easy to grind.
Fan of the powdered steel, huh?
Mm-hmm. I don't know how they make that stuff. How do they make that anyway?
They just really made the process so where it's commercially repeatable.
Yeah, because the pattern is so tight and consistent. I have no idea how they do that.
In my experience of forging, I'm assuming they're not overworking it. They're they're probably using thin stock and layering it out higher instead of doing the folds or using some thick material and working it down, which is what I've usually done. Is I'll start thick and work it down. So that way it's almost at thickness and then just tapping it.
Got it. So they probably roll it through a mill, right, rather than using a press or a hammer.
I'd assume so, because when I've done this too, I've used a rolling mill and not a rolling mill. It's night and day. For production, I see no reason to use a press.
Yeah,
they probably start off so it's a consistent rollout to get a two thickness, and when they press it, the steel isn't all deformed, so they get consistent patterns.
Yeah, whatever they're doing, and they're doing it right. You get what you pay for,
Dave,
right?
Tell us a little bit about how we got here, how we got to this point in time. How did you get into making swords? I mean, you make a variety of things, but tell us where you came from, sort of say.
Well, I started out. I did a little bit of forging in high school. I took a class called Ag Mechanics, and we had to forge steel there. And I actually got in trouble for making a shuriken in high school. Yep. Yeah, I have about 20 years of experience in metalwork, blacksmithing, and I think I just finished my third year working with blades. And as far as swords go, I just kind of hit the ground running with that. I think I made a katana was the second blade that I made. I've always been fascinated with like medieval weaponry and Japanese weaponry. Yeah.
Is everything you've been making knife-wise, it's only been 3 years?
Yeah, I just finished my third year. Yep.
Pretty incredible.
Wow.
Well, thank you. Well,
Yeah, that's amazing.
I'm still in my infancy. I'm kind of autodidactic. I look at something and rather than researching it, I just kind of figure out how to do it and work intuitively. Like I don't make templates. I usually draw something out on the steel, cut it out, and then just kind of let the material guide me through it. The process
That's
is
the way to do it.
constantly evolving.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So you're totally self-taught then. Just figured out by doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I read stuff like when I come to heat treat, if I'm using a steel that I've never used before, I'll look at the data sheet or I'll check forums, for heat treat recipes. But yeah, I'm not really into watching YouTube videos. I would like to learn from someone. I just don't. There's no one in the area, right? I don't know anyone else in the area that
When you're
makes knives.
self-taught,
So. What's
when
that?
you're self-taught like that, you're a true original. So that's always good.
Yeah, I'm trying. I mean, it's such an amazing career. It's constantly challenging. I mean, I always beat my head against the wall, doing stuff, overdoing stuff, mostly learning from mistakes, which there are a lot of, for sure.
That's not a bad way to do it, really.
Yeah, it's kind of expensive though.
So, do you forge for the most part, or are you doing stock removal?
Mostly stock removal. Actually, the first knife that I made, I forged. I just don't have an adequate forge setup right now to do it. But it's something I really want to do. I want to start making some Damascus and playing around with that. But for now, just stock removal. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what I was looking at because what the work you're doing looks like it would be forged work, but I kind of tell by the process and the finishing. I'm like, this looks like stock removal.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to get myself a surface grinder, like preferably something that does at least a 24-inch swing, which is a really big machine.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I'm looking for one now. I'm looking for an automatic 18-inch.
And you pretty much have to if you're forging bars out. If you're not rolling them out to get, consistent thickness, you pretty much have to surface grind it or have it Blanchard ground and then come back and clean it up.
Yeah, it's pretty much. I have 3 billets just sitting in my shop because I don't want to clean them up because they're performance stainless. So it's like I don't even have a surface grinder. So doing it on the grinder is a pain. And then going to my buddy's shop to go use a surface grinder. It's still like the right way to kind of do it is surface grind some of it and then mill some of it. But I just haven't had the right tools sitting in my mill to mill it. It's been sitting there for like 2 years now.
I really like what is it called? Brute de forge, where you forge the billet out and grind it and leave like all of the forge marks in the flats.
Mm-hmm. You forge in the finger guard too.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, one of the first like custom knives I ever got was Brute de Forge, like that I bought for myself.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Did you see that Tonto that Marenko made? It's a couple months ago. It's an integral.
I've only really seen those kitchen knives.
Yeah, it was an integral habaki, and the Suba, he forged it out and upset the outside of the Suba, and the Sepa is integral with the Suba. It's pretty amazing. It's on his Instagram page. Yeah, that guy's work is outstanding.
Can you explain the difference between the Suba and the Seba? Like, I know what you're talking about. I'd never know the words right, but like the people listening aren't going to be sure what that is.
The Suba would be, I guess, in European terms, the guard. And the Sepa is a spacer that goes between the habaki and the Suba, which is the guard. And then oftentimes there's another Sepa between the Suba and what's called the Suka, the handle. Often made with copper. It's kind of a spacer. Yeah. So the terminology.
Yeah, so for people trying to visualize it, if you ever look at a sword, you'll see, as you mentioned, there's the 5 layers. You got the handle, and then you would see like what would look like a copper shim that's smaller than the guard itself.
Yeah.
And the guard, and then you would see another shim looking thing that's smaller than the guard, and then you'd see, I always forget the blade guard part.
Oh, the habaki.
The habaki.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of fits if you do I think it's called a zero plunge. where the bevel continues all the way to the back of the handle. So in order to mate the guard so it doesn't slide forward onto the blade, you use a habaki. And the habaki also serves to fit into the saya.
Yeah, the last sword that I started that was the plan, was the grind went into the handle, and I was like, once I'll put a guard on it and put a habaki on it, it'll cover, so I don't have to worry about the plunge. I never got a chance to finish it because I stopped going with the hammer in, so it's been sitting there 4 years, not heat treated at this point.
So am I the only one where your Achilles heel is the plunge line?
I do folders, so for me, like plunge lines are where the money is for some guys.
Yeah, isn't the plunge line the most hardest part of the whole process?
Yeah, getting them even and getting the sweep consistent.
Yeah, it's like the defining piece too. It's like the piece de resistance.
Yeah,
so you can tell if a maker's worth his salt.
Yeah, looking at the plunge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only reason I did on the sword was because I thought it's the right way to do it for the swords. Because most pictures on katanas I was doing wakizashi. You don't really see a plunge, so I was assuming it just ground inwards. That's what I did.
Yeah, just grind it all the way to the back of the handle.
Yeah, but it just seems like such a weak way to do it now. Like it's sitting there, I'm like, this just seems weak.
I whatever works. That kind of grind. I don't know. I always have. A pseudo style take on it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't see how it weakens it at all.
No ricasso. Mm-hmm. Well, I would imagine that is the weak point on a sword, is right there where the blade ends and the ricasso starts.
Well, no, for me, I didn't. So when you're talking about grinding it all the way through, your handle is still full thickness. So I stepped it down as like a hidden tang. So there's a step inwards where my handle goes. So where the step is, and then the plunge goes. I mean, the grind goes past there. It just feels weird and thin, flimsy.
Yeah, exactly. This is very thin. Are you hollow grinding them?
No, it was a flat ground sword that I ground horizontally on a wheel.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
I don't even remember how long it's pretty much wakizashi length. I was just back then I was going to a lot of hammer ins, so I was like, I'll grind in a hammer in, I'll heat treat it, and then I stopped going to hammer ins as soon as I ground it. So I just been sitting in my shop, and I just call it the beater stick now.
You got to finish that thing.
It's $10.95. I'm gonna put a Hamon on it. It just sits there now. And I look at your work, and I'm like, I got to make this up at some point.
Oh man.
Yeah, you got to finish it up, dude.
And it's straight too, so it's not like a proper wakizashi. I was like, while heat treating it, I was going to bend it back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's pre-ground, not fully.
Did you oil quench it or water?
No, it's not. It's not hardened. That's why it's been sitting around. Just because I stopped going to hammer in, so I no longer have a heat treat oven big enough. It's hard.
It's so strange how when you oil quench, even with something close to water like Parks, it'll always bring the tip down. But you could do even an interrupted quench, like I've experimented with those, which I have a really high rate of failure, like 80%. You just splash it in water for about 1 second to 2 seconds and then go straight into the Parks. Even with that short splash in water, it'll raise the tip pretty dramatically too.
Yeah, I remember I've seen it many times in person, but when I saw it on, I think Mythbusters did an episode about that because they did a glass tank, so you're able to watch it.
Yeah, I think I saw that. It was like a plexiglass tank.
Yeah, it was a glass frame, and the sides were clear, and then you were able to watch it, and they were studying the myth of it moving or something like that. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, it drops and then it comes up. Probably because the edge is thinner, so it cools faster and it shrinks. And then the spine cools and it brings the tip up. But with oil, I'm not sure the physics behind it, but with oil, it stays down. Like if you start out with a straight sword, if it's ground on one side and you go oil quench it, it will go down.
No, I know. Yeah, a water quench is a fast quench, and an oil quench is a slow quench. So I'm assuming pretty much like you said, just as fast. The thin part's cooling a lot slower. I mean, a lot faster. So that's already temperature. The back is still soft, so it's pulling in towards there.
Yeah, but with water, for some reason, it pulls it up. It's really violent too. It's a water quench. It's a lot of stress on the steel.
Yeah, I was told by a maker that water quenching, like those traditional, the way they did it back in the day was like real hit or miss, and I guess the blades were like super brittle. Like the edges were like super like high Rockwell, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I've cracked every time I've oil quenched my W2. I mean, water quenched my W2.
Yep.
Even though it's supposed to be water quench steel, cracked every single blade I've made and tried to water quench it.
I always end up with these little tiny micro fractures, so I don't even see it oftentimes till I etch the blade, and it's always right at the Kasaki, the tip. You'll see this little, it looks like a little like eyelash or something on the blade, and then you just tap it with a hammer and it'll split. Because it's cracks,
that's a hard
propagate.
That's pretty much what I was talking about the forge at the hammering guys. Like once you heat treat it, cools down, just tap it on the side of the anvil.
Mm-hmm.
If it sounds hollow or something's wrong, there's probably a fracture in there. If it sounds solid, you're good.
Yeah, or if you hear the
every time I do that, and I find a micro crack. I haven't done it many times. That was not what I made money on. That was just for fun.
Or the dreaded tink sound.
Yeah, it was always like, oh, this sucks.
Tink of death.
And then I want to do it for a few months. I'm like, let's do it again. And eventually I was like, okay, I'm just doing this in parks. Because I want the water quench because everyone's like, you get a crazier hamon because it's a lot more aggressive.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But I never get it work.
Just the hamon looks totally different with water.
Is that what you're doing mainly for your hamons? Because you have one of the best hamons out there, in my opinion.
Thank you. I'm still experimenting, just different clay thicknesses, pattern. I've done a couple of water. I've only had 2 or 3 blades actually survive the interrupted quench, but the hamons come out really wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Dave, how did you get into like the sword making thing? That's what kind of interests me. So like there are many swords out there, but you seem to be focused on obviously the katanas, the wakasashis, the tantos, the sort of traditional Japanese stuff with a modern tactical style. Kinda, if I could say that. Where did that come from?
I don't know. I just I remember the first time I saw a katana, I just thought it was the sexiest thing I'd ever clapped eyes on. And I like English swords, French swords, but I don't know. Japanese blades are I just like the way they look. And I should, but I don't actually know a lot of the history behind them. I should take a month out of my life and just sit down and watch documentaries and read books about it, because I kind of feel guilty. Like I should know more about the history, and I don't. Just knife making in general. It's like paying homage to the craft by knowing the history.
Well, maybe in one way you've sort of brought your twist to the whole thing without knowing that, but able to adapt your style to put a twist on modernism. Because I mean the way the swords come out and the way you grind them and assemble them. So I mean I do see you do some wraps, but you do some textured handles as well, which I think is really neat, and that sort of appeals to the more, I think, whatever, tactical guys who want sort of a useful weapon.
Yeah, wood can be kind of a liability if you're dealing with the elements. Yeah, it's so beautiful and killer, but man, it does split, crack. If you're in environments that are wet or going cold to hot to dry, you're going to have some problems for sure.
Yeah. So and tell us a little bit about you jumped into this whole process of katanas. I mean, no one's gonna second guess you on that. A katana is a gorgeous curve with just murder in mind. So I mean, the first time you made one, you just you grabbed a piece of steel, you figured out a curve, and you just grind it.
We talking about a knife or a woman?
Both.
Yeah. The first one I made, I believe, was kind of had a slight curve to it. I believe it was 1084. And I'm just doing hollow grinds. So it was a good learning experience. It's really difficult to pull off a hollow grind that's 24 inches long.
Do you prefer hollow to flat?
I don't know if I prefer it. I just started out hollow grinding and I haven't really gone to flat.
Yeah,
because I know katanas are flat ground. Well, they use like draw files and files, and those sword polishers, man, it's a 10-year apprenticeship. Just the sword polishers.
I think the to be master was like 25 years before you could actually make the full katana.
Yeah, they take it seriously for sure.
Yeah, I remember exactly what I'm really fond of the Japanese culture, and like what you said, do like sit down for a month. Like I've done that. I just smoke some weed and sit down and watch a bunch of documentaries.
Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, I feel kind of guilty that I don't know more than I do.
So what about so you briefed on something there, which is hollow grinding something longer than 4 inches, which is pretty much already outside any modern knife maker's ability or scope of reality. What did you do? Just go to Harbor Freight, grab a grinder, and you're like, screw all this. I'm gonna hollow grind like a piece of steel that's longer than my arm.
The first grinder that I had, I actually made it. I kind of, I don't know if he still has it, but Travis Wirtz, the TW90, that grinder, if I remember right, he had the plans for it online. And I kind of looked at the plans and made my own take on it. And while I was making it, on eBay, a Bader B3 popped up for $400. And I bought it immediately. I think I paid more for shipping than I did for the grinder, but it was brand new. I believe it was like a pawn shop. They probably didn't do the research. They didn't know what they had.
Yeah.
But, it's like a $3,000 grinder. And then I immediately converted it to a variable speed motor. And the one that I built is variable speed. The one I built does horizontal or vertical, but I pretty much have it dedicated as a horizontal grinder. And then I just use the Bader for all the vertical work. And typically I've been using a 5-inch wheel a lot for hollow grinds, but I started out with an 8 and a 10 and I worked with those for a while, but I've been going with thinner, a narrower blade profile. So I switched down to a 5-inch hollow or a 5-inch wheel.
Like just that amount of grinding in any kind of straightness is insane. Like that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you're never going to have a blade that's 24 inches come out of heat treat straight. So yeah, there's a lot of correction. I've actually had a lot of blades break when I'm correcting them.
Yep. When kitchen knives is the only thing I could relate to, but I had jigs for it. Essentially, after hardening, I had these jigs that clamp them in all sorts of ways while tempering. Hopefully, that'll figure it out during temper.
It's got like 3 pieces of round bar, and you put it in the vise and kind of bend it further.
Yeah, that's for later. It was essentially a piece of U channel. I saw this from Sword Guys, and they'd have a series of pretty much screws every inch, 2 inches, however you set it up.
Got it.
There was about 10 screws per side on this thing, and you could literally torque it each screw to overcompensate where you have to, and then throw the whole thing into temper. And hopefully when the temper's out, it'll hold that shape.
Just load the whole thing into the oven. Got it.
You'll make a 24-inch piece of U channel, and then you have the flat bottom as the rest, and the left and right side of the channel, you just tap a bunch of holes in it to put quarter 20 bolts in. And you could screw them in and out and just push out, overcompensate the warp.
I think Matt Gregory sent me a photo of one of those. I don't know if it was his or a friend of his. Yeah, it had like 10. It was about this one was about a foot long, and I think it had about 10 bolts on each side.
Yeah, I just saw photos of Forge guys do, and I saw them with some of the hammer ends. I just did them every inch. It was overkill, but I didn't. Like I said, I just went off photos. So
better to have and not need than to need and not have, right?
And then after what you described in the device is what I do for my folder blades. I have a little attachment for my arbor press, 3 round pins, and just kind of bend it and hope I don't crack a blade.
Yeah,
that's cold bending it.
I basically after temper, I just put it on the anvil and use a brass mallet and correct the deformation over the hardy hole. Just kind of lay it. I have this piece of glass that's like 3/4 of an inch thick and about 36 inches long. That's pretty much straight. It's got a little bit of variance in it, but I lay the blade on that and look at it and look where the deformations are and mark it with a silver pencil, then take it over to the anvil, put it over the hardy hole, and then tap it with the brass mallet. Just, as slowly as possible.
Pretty much shot peening it, which I'm trying to learn how to do for the folder blades.
Yeah, that's where it breaks, though, sometimes. If you're working with something like S30V, like I made a sword out of S30V, which was a mistake. It had a slight warp in it, and that stuff just does not move. It just breaks. I should have done my research. Should have done my research beforehand.
Well, that's most of the stainless steels. The stainless steels are that way. When I'm bending them, I'll overextend them a shit ton in the vise, and they'll just keep bouncing back when they're hard. And then
Yeah.
sometimes it's one point in Rockwell later, and the minuscule bends it. And sometimes, like I said, I'll overextend it a crap ton, and then it'll bounce back. And seven bends later, I'm still in the same spot. I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
Like, what's this thing?
Have you tried Z-Tough?
I mainly stick to the same steels: S30, ABL, Nitro V, CTS, XHP.
Got it.
I'm right by NJ Steel Baron, so for me, it's whatever they have is the easiest for me to get.
Yeah, I pretty much order everything from them or Alpha. But New Jersey Steel Baron, I need full 48-inch. I think they shear it off of a 4x8 plate. But look, if you're buying steel from Alpha, I don't think they have any billets longer than 23.5 or 24 inches.
Yeah, they get smaller. They get smaller stock, and they're cutting at the other side of the grain. That's why they're getting 23-inch pieces instead of 36 or 48.
Got it. Actually, I take that back. I've ordered some 3V from them that was a full 36 inches. And that stuff is amazing.
I'm still a little bit surprised that you've only been doing this for about 3 years. So you said you have about 25 years or so of experience working with metals. What were you doing before this?
Doing mostly architectural. I started out making sculpture and worked with furniture a little bit. I really like making gates, just forging pieces and putting them together, kind of working intuitively. But I started looking at knives, I think it was about 5 years ago. I've always been fascinated with them, but I remember getting online one day and looking at some of the modern knives, and I was just blown away by the bevels and the swedges. I didn't know how they did it. I mean, it was obvious that they were using belt grinders, but it just blew me away. I'm like, man, I need to learn how to do this. So I sold off a lot of my equipment and started buying the equipment to switch to knife making. Yep.
So you just you checked it out online, and then that was what hooked you.
I think what put the hook in me was looking at Mick Strider's custom short swords and fixed blades that he makes. The one-offs. Man, those things just blew my mind.
Mm-hmm. Those are sick as hell.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, I saw those and I'm like, man, I need to learn how to do this. I don't know if he does it anymore. But yeah, he does some really crazy materials too. Like he's got one that was Damascus. I don't know what the other steel was, but he was using minigun barrels.
Yeah. I like some really far out stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been really supportive. I don't know him in person, but online, I followed him for a while, and he just reached out to me one day and started giving me advice. And yeah, he's been really cool and really supportive.
Oh, that's legit. I mean, he's a fellow Californian, so that's kind of
yeah. He lives down in LA, I believe.
Yeah, that's neat. That's cool to have somebody like that just sort of reach out and be very, very honest and forthcoming with knowledge.
Yeah, I think it was the Habaki. Like he just sent me a message one day. It's like, hey man, you need to start making Habakis. And then he sent me a few photos of what he was doing. He's like, yeah, it'll save you time in some ways, but it'll take more in others. And yeah. Great guy. There's so many makers out there that just blow my mind.
Oh yeah. There's a whole sea of them on social media. It's like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, there's there's good and the bad.
Yeah. As with everything. So yeah, you started grinding, you got advice from Mixed Rider. I mean, you have 26,000 followers on Instagram. That was, that was a build to get there. But I mean, that's crazy, especially for somebody who's been doing this for the amount of time that you have.
Yeah, the whole social media wild phenomenon. Yeah. I don't know how.
But I mean, that's your main thing, right? I mean, you don't. There's no other sort of advertising for you. It's really like you do most of your sales through Instagram. Pretty much, yeah. It's just kind of like a, an art gallery with a personality. Instagram's pretty amazing. I mean, there's a lot of shit on there, and as you guys probably do too. I spend too much time on it, and I got to check myself. But I pretty much, while I'm working, I have my tablet there, and I try to keep up with messages and,
whatnot. But yeah,
So now, do you take orders then?
Mm-hmm. Most of
Wow.
what I'm making now is are custom orders. You know, people
Okay.
reach out to me and they have a certain idea, and I try to accommodate the best I can, and it keeps. I feel more challenged that way because I get some really off the wall requests, and it makes me think about different materials or color schemes or designs that I otherwise wouldn't have thought of.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's good to sort of have a conversation with a collector or someone looking to invest in your work.
Yep. The knife making community, for the most part, has been 100% positive for me so far. I can't think of anything bad to say about it. And I'm sure that there are a lot of bad things to say about it. Just my personal experience with it has been almost 100% positive.
I mean, that's good. I think that in general, I think people in this community are pretty outright with their knowledge. They're not too. I mean, certain finishes tend to be the most coveted thing. How did you finish this? How did you finish that? Or if there's some sort of specific rub style on a blade, but otherwise, the techniques involved and the equipment.
Yeah, it doesn't really belong to you. The knowledge, because someone taught you or you learned from other people's knowledge. So if you figure something out or if you do something a certain way and another maker reaches out to you and asks you, then I feel like it's kind of your duty to help them out. Why not?
Yeah.
There are no secrets.
Pretty good way to look at it.
If you don't tell someone how something's done, they're going to figure it out eventually.
Right. I think sometimes the figuring it out part, it can be the formation of someone's style in some cases.
Absolutely.
I guess if that's sort of, they're trying to figure out how to do it, and that really that changes their whole perspective on it.
Yeah, like if you make a mistake and it sends you in another direction, and you discover a whole new way of doing something, that can be great. It's kind of time consuming and expensive to go that route, but why not?
The other types of weapons that you've made, because you talked about shurikens a little bit, and then I know on your Instagram feed I've seen some trench knives and some knuckles.
Yeah, I've been making a lot of shurikens lately. People love those things.
Yeah, how much are you selling shuriken for?
I've been selling the ones out of 1/4 inch 1095 with the Hamons for $225.
That's out of my shuriken price range.
Yeah, and then I've been making.
They're a great price. They're like the Hamons are crazy.
Yeah, they're kind of grueling to make. Like a 7-point has 28 bevels on it, so it's like it's like grinding 7 dagger points.
28 bevels.
Yep.
And yes.
Yeah. Yep. Huh. I usually make them 2 at a time. I just can't get myself into making more than that.
I wonder if you can make a folding shuriken, like with a flipper, like eject the blade or some shit.
Yeah, they sell those at the flea market.
How about an OTF katana?
Fuck yeah.
3-sided.
Yeah. I need to figure out some kind of launching mechanism for shurikens.
Just a door
spring. It would probably be like one of those things that you would use for like a shot put.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
or a skeet launcher.
Yeah, it would have to be like adapted and like retrofitted.
Yeah, or
one of those curved arms for the clay pigeons. Nice.
Yeah. Those little manual clay pigeon launchers. It's like an arm with a little thing in it. You could throw those.
Mm-hmm. A shuriken.
Gnarly as hell.
I love the term mechanical advantage.
Yes.
There you go.
I want a shirt. I want a T-shirt that just says "I have the mechanical advantage."
Yeah, or just mechanical advantage. There's $1 billion to be made in the T-shirt market. Just come up with really random shit with cool graphics.
That's literally my like the advertising plan for PVK.
It's just
cool graphics.
Spent some money today on T-shirts.
Yeah, they're not cheap. I mean, a cool T-shirt's going to cost what, $30-$40
or more,
$50-$60.
Yeah, the trick is to make them don't go cheap on the T-shirts. Get the Egyptian cotton.
Yeah, bespoke as hell. Yeah.
Yep. I don't know anything about fabrics, but I know cotton is nice. I've been wanting to make
shurikens, my guy. So what made you like start going? Because I saw you read the book. Like you're trying to go the traditional designs. You weren't kind of going on your base there.
I just kind of drew one out. Like I was saying, I made one in high school and kind of got myself in trouble doing it. And I didn't know anything about steel back then. I just made it out of, I don't even know what it was, maybe 1/8 inch mild steel. I didn't know anything about heat treat or what it did. This was for sure that every time I threw it, the tip bent. So, but yeah, that was the first one. And I believe, if I remember right, it was a 4-point. I don't know. One day I was messing around and I just kind of drew one up and made it. And yeah, people seem to love them.
I got a couple in my collection in the shop. I always throw them against the wood board, so when it falls, it's concrete, which isn't good.
Fuck yeah, it's a stress reliever.
I got old school Japanese ones, like the original ones that back from the 60s. It's like a 3-pack in the leather case. I forget the brand, but it was like the ones to get back then.
Yeah, they're like the 8-point Ninja Stars.
I got the 4 points.
Okay. I noticed that RMJ Tactical is making them. What does he call them? The Snowflake? He's making an 8-point.
I don't know. He makes one with a pretty cool Kydex sheet. And the other one that I have, it's a bit nicer because it's made out of ABL. It's by Robert Oldacker. It's another 4-point.
How is ABL as far as toughness? Is it going to chip?
No, it's damn tough. Like that's what the main characteristic of ABL is, toughness.
Yeah.
Just think about a stainless 52-100 is pretty much what it is.
Okay.
I've had I've got an ABL.
There you go. So is it comparable to like stainless version of 3B? Sort of.
Toughness wise, I think it's actually tougher than 3B if you look at the scale.
Holy shit! And it's stainless.
Yeah, it's because it's like a 52-100, so it's like a carbon stainless. It doesn't have the craziest edge. It's like a 440C for edge retention. But the main characteristic is toughness. That's why a lot of guys use it for kitchen knives.
I've got
52-100 for stainless.
I've got some 3V, 1/4 inch 3V. I don't know, set 1/4 inch. It's like 0.207, and some Z-Tough. I was thinking about making some shurikens with that stuff, but unfortunately, the Hamon's not going to work. So
yeah, but they'll do great ABL. Mine's made out of ABL, and it falls on textured concrete every day.
Well, damn! Now that I know that, I'm going to have to order a billet of that and make like a short sword with it.
Yeah, I've broken like tips off them, but like I'm talking about like the less than the 16th of an inch off a tip broke, and it's falling on textured concrete in my shop. So
yeah, was that from falling on the concrete or trying to pry with it?
No, that's hitting the board and it's not sticking, or it bouncing off and falling like 8 feet onto textured concrete.
Yeah, the Hamon works well with that because if you bring the clay really close to the edges, you get a lot of shock resistance that way. But the tip is still going to be hardened. So,
he also ground his really thin, but they're holding up still. The tips have broken, but for the amount of times it fell on concrete, it's still pretty good.
Yeah, well, you got the tools. You can just reprofile them, regrind them.
Yeah, I'm just lazy. I'll do it once in a while, but not all the time.
I was going to say something about you being lazy, even though I don't know you. Like, Nick, you lazy.
I'm the most energetic, lazy person ever.
I'm going to be all over your nuts about finishing that short sword.
I'll finish it the moment I get a chance to heat treat it. No one I know has I need pretty much a 32-inch oven. That's the
Send it to me. Send it to me. I'll do it for you. I've got a 40-inch even heat.
See, but if I'm serious about actually finishing it, like I'd rather just start over.
Yeah.
I don't like the way that I did the plunge thing. Like I should have just actually ground it with a normal plunge.
Yeah, zero.
I have to make a guard for it that I have to file the guard to mimic the edge. And everything I attach has to file to mimic the edge. It was not a smart construction plan. It was more like I wanted to just try to grind it. And I was like, when I ground it, I was like, this wasn't great for construction.
Yeah, I really need to start getting down with the jewelry saw and the needle files. Just looking at some of these people work, like, do you know who Niels Vandenberg is? The Black Dragon Forge?
I don't know him, but I know Black Dragon Forge.
Yeah, man, his work is incredible. But him and Cast Knives, it's obvious that they're getting busy with the jeweler saw. It's pretty amazing.
Cast Knives, man, Jesus.
Yeah, it's like a whole team of brothers, isn't it? Like one guy doing the sheaths. I think it is,
yeah. I think it's
2 or 3,
guys.
yeah.
You'd have to
Obviously,
have like a
obviously very talented.
One of
yeah.
them just sits there and grinds blades out like crazy.
Mm-hmm. Well, whatever they're doing it right. Their wakazashis that they've made are just outstanding. Really nice.
I'm finding they're like sub.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he made was it broadsword recently? That's pretty fantastic. Yep. There's a lot of people out there making cool shit. It's intimidating.
I feel like all those people don't get enough recognition.
No. Yeah. Oftentimes the most talented people are, they're in the margins.
Yeah.
Well, they spend all their time working. They don't have time for social media and promoting.
I just said shit with a hammer till it works.
Hey, we should start some kind of agency where, you know how they have talent agents for musicians and actors? What if you started a talent agency where you represented artists like knife makers, furniture makers, and basically the agent was like a manager.
I have to get better at my own social media to operate others.
Well, let's face it. If you spend all your time in the shop, it's at the end of the day, you don't have the energy or the time to do it. And if you had someone that say they took 15 or 20%, just mark up your prices, and they have the golden Rolodex, they do all the emails, social media, promoting, and you just work.
I've actually tried that business twice before doing what I do now.
I want Jeremiah to do that for me, and it's always like,
the problem is that dealing with artists isn't worth it. Because while I love them, they're all finicky assholes.
Well,
and nobody can figure out like how much to pay each other. Like I used to do it for painters, and it's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Selling,
you just got to be straight up.
That's not the hard part. Selling things is easy. Dealing with the painters is oh my god.
Well, yeah, zero prima donna. Just have
life makers.
Just zero tolerance. Just tell them up front, if I don't like you, or if it's hard to work with you, then I'm not going to represent you. So if you want me to do my job, then
Dave, after this ends, Jeremiah's going to send me a goddamn text message here.
It's all the fervent egos.
You just opened up a can of worms, huh?
It's not a bad idea. It's really, I think that's where at some point dealers kind of just do come in, where it's just like, look, you don't want to deal with people, I'll deal with people. That's where I get the percentage from.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
I don't know.
If you're a maker, I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of addicted to what do they call it? The flow state. I get up at 4:30 or 5 and I come into the shop and drink coffee and I just put my head down and work. And 10 hours is gone like that. Boom.
That's pretty much me from pretty much like 2 p.m. to like 3 a.m. I'm just in the shop.
Yep. That's the price of admission, right? You got to pay your respects to the craft by giving it everything you have.
That's how the float state. That's a good way to say it. Pretty much, if I get in the shop, I start like I can't sit down to get on my phone or something like that because I'll just sit there for an hour. I lose concentration. I like to kind of do it, get it done, go home, and then I'm like, I'll take care of it when I get home. And then like I'm tired, I'm going to bed.
Yeah, when I come home, it's pretty much Netflix and food, and that's it. Yep, you got to stay focused. It's everything. It is kind of a solitary lifestyle, though. Being a knife maker, it's kind of losing my ability to communicate because I work so much.
Oh, I had that issue. I've been doing this for 10 years, but for about 2 years, I moved out of New York to go with no friends, nothing. So I couldn't afford a shop here in New York. I left home. I was like, I'm just going to go. It's cheaper for me to live out there and work out there.
Yeah, you got to live in your shop. 2
years, I became I had an apartment. But I became a hermit. It's like social skills. I started lacking in social skills and how to talk to people that I didn't know. Yeah, just because I didn't talk to family. I'll talk to my family on the phone or whatever. But like, I just woke up, went to shop, the things, got home, ate, watched the TV, went to bed, woke up. Like that was me 6 days a week, and on 1 day a week, I'd go home or something like that. So back to New York.
I had so much anxiety doing this podcast because I'm like, man, I don't even know if I can communicate anymore. So on the way to work today, I stopped at the liquor store and picked up a baby Jack Daniels and had a couple shots. And I don't know, the words, I guess the words just start hatching if you don't think about it too
Once
much.
you start talking, it just kind of goes. Like we've been off topic here for a bit, and just there's still something to talk about.
Yeah, the topic is off topic. Yeah. Yeah, when things become too regimented and planned, that kind of screws it up. I was writing things down today, like what do I want to say, or or my history is my background's kind of boring. I'm going to talk about this. I'm like, you know what? Scrap it. I'm just going to whatever comes up. That's what we talk about.
We say we're going to write shit down every time, and it's like it never really works out. Because then when we actually do write stuff down, it just never really fits in right.
Yeah, it's like contrived. Like you're trying to cram shit in that you planned, and it doesn't really fit with what's going on or what kind of mood everyone else is in.
It's like same thing if I write the schedule for what I'm going to do at work that next day. I'm like, okay, I'll go to the shop. I got to do this, and this. And like, I'll get more shit done, but I did nothing that was on that list.
Yeah. Yeah. Just priorities, right?
I just kind of I figure out what's better for me. It's I'll just wake up, walk into the shop, look left, look right. Okay, this is what I'm doing today. And when I get this done, I can go home.
How are you when you're working and someone comes into the shop randomly and starts talking to you? Do you have difficulties with that?
Not really, because I'll usually work 12 or 13-hour shifts. And for at least half of those, I have someone in my ear, so I'm talking to another knife maker on the phone. So I'm pretty good at multitasking and working. There
you go. You got the Bluetooth set up.
Yeah, Bluetooth and also the last 8 months I've been working with my dad, so there's someone else in the shop always. So kind of used to getting. I'm kind of used to it. But there are makers where I've been to their shop and like they'll stop working and I'll just kind of try to occupy myself to let them get back on track.
Yeah.
Some guys aren't really the best at multitasking, working and talking, but I know exactly what you mean.
Matt Gregory was telling me recently, because I had mentioned something about being completely autodidactic. Like I just kind of, learned by making mistakes. And he said, and you really need to get out because, spending 2 days in another maker shop, you'll learn more than you would just in your own shop for 2 years. Just seeing how they do things, how they grind or their design process. And I could totally see that. I just don't know anyone that's within 500 miles of me.
Yeah, well, I flew to maker shops. That's how I learned in the beginning. I used to fly to Rob Carter's shop a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I was a new maker and he was a seasoned maker, but we definitely learned just as much off each other because I was modern and I was onto the machining side and not pre-CNC. This is manual machines, but I just had a knack for understanding how the mill worked and fixture setups and repeatability. And he didn't, but he knew how to grind and make a knife and finish shit well. So about 3 trips over there and 2 trips over here, and we kind of I modernized him, and he taught me how to finish shit well.
Mm-hmm. And machine work, or knowing how to do it, that's golden. I know very little. I understand the rudiments of like a vertical mill and a lathe. I do use vertical mills to cut fullers and mill slots, and I could see how learning that stuff it just takes your stuff to the next level. For sure.
When you're doing folders and stuff, you kind of want repeatability. So
absolutely.
Most of the trick is learning like the understanding of how to set up repeatable fixtures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Even with grinding.
Even my grinders are all set up with proprietary jigs and fixtures. I usually buy basic grinders, but my grinders have at least 3 grand of modifications in them between all the custom fixtures that I've made.
Yeah. All the rests and angle jigs and everything I've made all myself, just based around what I needed. I'm not afraid to take 2 or 3 days out just to stop and look at something. If I want to try something different, just build a jig or build a fixture.
I'm not afraid. That's definitely one of my problems. Is like I'll push myself to like, I really need to build this thing where I really don't need to.
Yeah,
like I'll talk myself into needing to do that, so that way I like building shit more than like make knives. I like making fixtures and stuff like that.
Is it only after you've built it that you realize that you don't need it, or is it just you're talking yourself into?
I know the entire time that I don't really need it, but I talk myself into staying and building it because I want to build it.
Well, it's fun. Yeah,
that's the thing. I get more gratification because for me, knives, like I figured them out. Like I can make a knife ass backwards with any tool you give me. So for me, it's no longer fun. It's a job. I just get it done, get paid, move on to the next one. So when I get to build a fixture or a jig, I have to think about it. How am I going to use this thing? How am I going to build it? How is it going to, what key points about it make it repeatable? If I'm going to add on to it, like most of my jigs are specific to some models, and some of them work for food models. And I start thinking, well, if this is going to be a universal one, like, and I add models to it later on, how do I add on to this jig? How do I modify it for the stuff? Like, is it modifiable? And like, I enjoy that process of pre-planning and thinking about it. So, but like, there's times where it's like, what I'm doing now works. I don't really need this newer version, but I want to build it. And I've been kind of doing the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to do this.
Yeah, well, it takes you out of your what do they call it, plateau? Where I find myself working on certain things and I'm not even really thinking about what I'm doing. But when I stop and try something different or build a different tool, it's difficult, yes, but it also forces you to think. And then by doing that, you come up with a different way of doing it, which is oftentimes really good. That was one of the good things about getting away from doing the architectural stuff is I used to hate doing installation work. Oftentimes it was out of town. I'd get up at 3 a.m, load up all my tools, try to remember everything, hope I didn't forget anything, hope everything fits, drive 3 hours, drag all my tools into someone's house. It was a nightmare.
That was the thing. When I was a locksmith, I hated taking tools into people's houses.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You walk in there and then you get the like, there's always a nasty lady. It's like, I just did my floors this week. Don't scratch anything. I'm like, look, lady, like, you should have did your locks first. Like, obviously, I'm be drilling your door and like taking your door off the hinges sometimes. Like, you have thought about this.
Yeah, having to grind and weld on like a $60,000 cherry wood staircase. Not fun. Not fun.
Did you do gates for anybody in particular? Any memorable people we might know?
Yeah, I was looking at your Instagram and happened to see that you did one for Alex Gray.
Yeah, I did a couple pieces for him. My friend Zach, who passed away, actually, he worked for Alex Gray when he was opening the Cosm Gallery in Chelsea. And he turned me on to Alex, and I had a phone conversation with him, and I made a couple of pieces for him. And then I made it was originally for the elevator in their studio in New York. But that particular gate, they took it off when they got that piece of property in upstate New York. They took it and installed it in I think they have a gift shop. But I haven't seen him or talked to him in a long time. But man, he's an outstanding person, super humble, super intelligent, just a great guy.
Yeah, he seems like a unique, really awesome person.
Yeah, speaking of flow state, I mean, that guy's paintings are amazing.
Been very inspirational for me.
Have you seen any of them in real life?
Never in real life, huh?
Oh, man. I mean, just you can walk up to it and put your nose against the canvas. And he's got like paintbrushes that have like one hair on them.
Mm-hmm. I know, he's like so technical.
Yeah. Yeah, he spends years and years and years. I don't know how much he paints anymore, but he doesn't sell his work either. Yeah.
The newest ones he's done, I guess, were for Fear Inoculum, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That's the newest stuff I've seen from him.
Oh, for the Tool album?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it all looks great.
Yeah, it was... Alex had talked to me a while ago. I guess Adam Jones, the guitar player, mm-hmm. he saw the gate and he wanted me to make him something, but it never went through. It's kind of bummed. Yeah. That would have been a great gig.
That would have been cool.
Yeah, their music's pretty badass. They're like kind of like Pink Floyd in a way, not the style of music, but in that they're really original. Like if you were to describe Pink Floyd to someone who's never heard it, you can't really say it's rock and roll. There's no way to classify that music.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah, it's different. It's not your standard rock and roll format.
Nope, not at all. Our other hosts don't feel the same, but
no,
maybe not.
Yeah, music's one of those things. You either feel it or you don't. Everyone's got their style. I pretty much like everything. If it's good, it's good, and I like it.
I don't find myself to any particular genre. If I like how it sounds, I like it. But like I don't fall into music like Elijah does. For me, I can't listen. Like I work, like I said, 12, 13-hour shifts. I can't listen to music for that. Like I'll listen to like 10 hours of podcast. Then in between, I'll listen to like an hour of music within my day.
Yeah. Yeah, it just kind of depends. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately. The Martyr Made podcast has really got me hooked. Like I think there's about 18 podcasts, and they're between 2 and 3 hours long, and it's pretty amazing. This guy has read a lot of books and done a lot of research, but they all flow together. A lot of it has to do with the struggles of humanity in war, history. But yeah, super addicting stuff.
Yeah, it's just the
Everyone,
type of stuff I listen to. Because if I'm learning something while I work, I kind of
Mhm.
zone off, and that's how I work those shows. I said when I get in there, I just go until I stop, and I go home. Because if I'm learning something while I'm listening, while getting the task done,
Yeah.
I have to keep every cylinder firing. It's
Hmm.
either all eight cylinders fire or none of them. There's no in between for me. So I have to
Yeah.
keep everything. Like even like when I play video games, I'll be playing video games while texting, while listening to a podcast or a YouTube video, while working on CAD work, like on my laptop, my CAD, like in between loading screens. Like this is just how I work. It was either 0 or 100.
Yeah. That's why I can't work when I'm not well slept. Like you said, if I'm not hitting on all 8 cylinders, I can't do it. Like if I'm hungover, I'd come in and I'm like, oh yeah, I could work today, and I get there
See,
and I'm like,
when I'm
no, it's
not
not
well
happening.
slept is when I work. Like they've seen me work not when I'm not slept, essentially. Because
Hmm.
if I'm not slept, I'm only firing on 8 cylinders. Because the moment I get to 7 cylinders, I go down to 0. The moment I stop to relax is when it's over.
Yeah,
Like
you
they've
fall
seen
asleep.
me, they've watched me work. They've gone to bed to sleep. They waking up and I'm still running around working. Because if I sit down, I'm out. Like I'll make a cup of coffee, but I don't sit down to drink my coffee. As I walk around, I'll drink the coffee because the moment I sit down, that's it.
Yeah, so you don't have like a really regimented schedule. You just kind of work until you're done.
Yeah, like I said, I'll walk in the shop. Well, now it's a little bit more regimented because I have an employee now.
Hmm.
But like weekend days, and he works 4 days a week. So when I'm there without him, uh, I'll still like it. Just kind of I'll walk in there and I'll look around. I'm like, okay, like this has to get done today. When it's done, I'll go home, and it
Yeah,
might get done in 9 hours. It might get done in 14 hours. I'll just get it. I'll get it done. Like there's 4 blades to grind, then do this and that. Like sometimes I'll be 3 blades in. I'll be like, oh, it's already 1 a.m. But if I'll just finish this blade right now and go home, and I'll just get home an hour and a half later. Because I know if I leave it till
yeah,
next morning, it's going to take me 4 hours to grind that blade by the time I get into the rhythm, set up everything to go.
yep,
So I might as well
yeah.
just finish it.
No one said pimping was easy.
Gotta keep that pimp hand strong.
Fuck yeah. I feel a strong pull towards buying more belt grinders. I spend so much time swapping stuff out, swapping the wheel, swapping the fixture, and move this, move that.
Well, yeah, that's why
Maybe.
I have dedicated. I have 2 grinders and 6 work rests. So the work rests are dedicated for different wheels and plat ends. So like I have one work rest that's always set up for just my swedges. One that's set up just for hollow grinding. One set up just for my tanto tips. Like I don't like adjustable work rests.
So you have like the particular tool arm set up where you just
Yeah, so
pull the
I
arm
have
out, put it in.
this arm is always 60 degrees. This arm is always 90. This one's always 45. This one's always 7 degrees.
Yeah.
This one's always for the horizontal or the small wheel. I just have a shit ton of work rests.
Do you do any freehand grinding?
I used to, not really anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's faster.
Yeah.
I tell
Yeah.
everyone who starts making knives, start freehand and then do the jig, because if you try to jig grind and you encounter some weirder grind, you won't be able to do it unless you have freehand knowledge. Plus, you become way better of a grinder, understanding the 3-dimensional dynamic of grinding it, opposed to when you're a jig, it's pretty much 2-dimensional.
Yeah. 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 Using a jig it really limits you depending on what you're doing. Like if you're doing like a recurve or like a kukri grind, if you don't know how to freehand grind, it's gonna, there's certain things you can't do using a jig.
It's not even
Yeah.
that. Sometimes when you start grinding on a jig, now you're grinding big things, I'm grinding folders. It's not as repeatable as you'd hope sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you have this jig set up to, like, it's a 2-point system. One goes through the pivot to hold the blade. There's another screw that kind of adjusts the blade rotation, so adjusts the edge lineup essentially.
Got it.
All the blades are shaped a little differently every time, so sometimes it's not perfectly parallel, and when you're grinding, that'll change, and your grind might start walking away from you. On one
Mm-hmm.
side, like you ground one side and you're at the proper edge thickness and you're at the proper grind height,
Mm-hmm.
and then you grind the other side and you're at the proper edge thickness, but your grind's too low, or vice versa. Your grind's already at the grind height, but like you still have another 10th out to take off the edge.
Yeah.
And that's where the jigs start to limit you, and then I'll pull them off the jig and then feather it in by freehand to finish it up.
Yeah.
As
The
they grind the
close.
jigs, they'll have grinds that are lopsided side to side because they don't know how to even them out when the jig starts to pull them into one direction.
Yeah. When you get closer to being done with the grind, it's unforgiving, like a really long hollow grind. And if you, I can almost see my heartbeat in the grind. If you hiccup, you make a big bump in it.
Well, for you, it's not. For me, it's just traversing my hands.
Mhm.
For you, it's a little bit more complex. I remember when I was grinding with the sword, I had to pretty much traverse my hands for whatever, however, like 9-10 inches, and then now the hips have to start swaying to get the additional 4 inches, and then the
Yeah.
knees have to start swaying to get the additional 3 or 4 inches, and the ankles have to start swaying, and then you do it the other way.
Yeah. As long as you don't have to take a step. I've noticed I have the best results when I lock my elbows into my hips and just kind of move with my hips and my legs and pull it across. But yeah, I'd hate it. I'd hate to see a video of myself grinding. It's probably pretty ridiculous looking. I can only imagine the faces that I make when I'm working.
Well, the sword that I actually ground on the wheel vertically.
Uh huh.
So I put the blade facing downwards and rested it on my palm and just slid it along my palm up and down.
Yeah. So you're using a round contact wheel, but you're grinding it
Yeah, I
flat.
was doing a 6-inch wheel and grinding a flat. So, like I said, pointing down and then using my palm to adjust pretty much the fingers would push against and adjust the angle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's rest against my palm and my right hand will just kind of pull back and forth using a
Do you
glove
know?
with my left hand. So it kind of felt like a bearing surface.
Do you know who Peter Johnson is, the sword maker?
Yeah.
Oh man, I was watching a video of him grinding, and he does everything that way. He was teaching some kids how to grind, and man, that guy's work is unreal.
Yeah, most of the sword makers that most of the hammer ends are grinding that way. So I saw them do it that way. So that's what I tried. Because it
Mm-hmm.
was the same thing. I think it was like a 26-inch blade, and there's only so much motion you can go with your hands. So I was making the joke. I was like, your hands go, then your waist goes, then your knees go, then your ankles go to get the full sweep, and then you go the
Yeah,
other way.
yeah. If you grind it horizontally, I think you have to work in sections. Like I don't know how they feather those sections together. Like if you were doing a hollow grind that's 24 inches, you do 12 on this side, 12 towards the tip, and then somehow feather those together. I don't know. It seems like undoable to me.
The shop that I was working with, they were making essentially kosher slaughter knives. So the kosher slaughter knife for cows is like a 20-inch blade. And they
Mm-hmm.
were having that issue, and I was trying to come up with a jig that ran on bearings. So
Mm-hmm.
essentially, you stand on the side of the grinder, and you push with your left hand to push the jig in, but then you just use your right hand and you just pull back and forth.
Got it.
So the
So,
bearings kind of let it ride, almost kind of like the TW90 surface grinder attachment.
mm-hmm.
But you stand on
Yeah.
the side of the grinder instead of in front of it.
I've always wondered how well those things work. Obviously, they don't work as well as a dedicated surface grinder, but
I didn't use it as a surface grinder. I used it as a grinding machine because there's a
yeah.
built-in sign plate on there,
Uh huh.
so you could angle it. And
So
they ended up grinding most of those that way. They would angle it and use it as an angled surface grinder, essentially.
yeah, you could probably get some nice distal tapers doing it that way too, using a sign plate.
That was interesting. I was messing around with that. The second sword that I ground, I just ground it too thin. Was with the sign plate system, and it looked just like the
Mhm.
one that I did by hand.
Yeah,
It was just
yeah,
back and forth, and then about 10 minutes, I had a sword ground.
yeah. I've noticed that a lot of makers talk shit who grind freehand talk shit about people who use jigs, and
Yeah, it's bullshit. It's like the guys
yeah,
are like, "Oh, no CNC." I'm like, "Great, go into my shop, use the equipment in my shop, make something. I can walk into yours and do what you do." Like, it's
the, wo-
it's a different skill.
the way you get to the finished product, does it really matter? You know, like really the
It
ultimate
matters if you
goal
say
is
you
to,
made it and there's a little Indian kid in India. It's
yeah.
That's a difference. Just be honest with how you make stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if someone asks you a question, then why? Oh, you don't have anything to hide. I grind some stuff freehand, and some things I use jigs, depending on what it is, and ultimately, it's the finished product that you're after. Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of the makers who forge blades They just they talk a lot of shit about people who
No, they don't
do
talk shit
stock
about
removal.
jig guys. They talk shit
Yeah,
about
it's
guys
just-
that use CNCs.
Yeah, or people who just do stock removal. Like that's not blade making. It's really what you're after. Obviously, there's things you can do when you forge a blade that you can't do. With, like integral bolsters. Well,
Yeah, I think
I
a lot of
I
it
guess you.
just depends on different parts of the collector community and different parts of the maker community. So I mean, like
Mhm.
ABS guys are never going to probably get along with a lot of the with the stock removal guys or the CNC guys, but you know, for a little while at Blade Show, they all sit at tables and talk to each other. But yeah, in the end, there's an ass for every seat out there. I mean, there's a customer for every knife and every sword.
Yeah.
Like I remember when I first started, CNC knife making was a taboo.
Yeah.
When I was a collector, at least. When I was becoming a maker, it was a little bit more acceptable. And nowadays, there's collectors that only collect CNC knives because they like the perfection aspect of it, the accuracy, the repeatability of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's guys that won't buy them because they don't like the repeatability of it.
Do you like David Lespeck's work?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been tripping on that lately. He makes some really nice folders, really organic looking.
I didn't know too much about him until at the New York Knife Show. Jarrett's you're familiar? That's the one Mark had at the restaurant with the wood handles.
Yeah, he's a great maker.
Yeah, he's French, I believe.
Yep.
I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Is Lespeck?
Yeah, that
I'm
front
pretty sure
flipper
that's what I
model he
heard.
has is pretty on point. We handled a few of those, and they're really it's something else. The action, the form, the feel in the hand is it's a nice knife.
Yeah, super organic looking. Yeah, there's so much talent out there. That is one of the good things about social media is you get turned on to stuff you otherwise would have never seen.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge mixing pot of visuals. Constantly scrolling through the feed, and then you click on something and it shows you something else, and then it suggests something.
Yeah.
It's really it's horrible how well the technology works when you don't even think about it, and then when you do think about it, it's terrifying because then you're an hour later and you're like, I was done taking this shit a long time ago. This is taking way too long.
Yeah. Yeah, when YouTube started taking off, I found myself falling into that hole.
Oh man!
And you can sit and watch 10-minute video clips for eons.
Oh yeah, no,
and just let the algorithm take you where it wants to take you. Which oftentimes isn't.
Yeah, if you're in the right mindset, that might work out. If you're trying to be productive, I don't know, depending on your description of productivity.
Yeah, if you're spending 8 hours on YouTube is definitely not productivity.
Yeah, it's not knife making.
No, it doesn't get anything done.
What about those knuckles you made? What was the inspiration for that?
I don't know. I've always thought knuckle dusters were pretty fucking awesome. I really like the ones that Terry makes. Terry Shanks.
Yeah,
he actually sent.
Terry.
He sent me these gnarly knuckle dusters. They're half or 5/8 inch copper plate. They're just like so killer. Yeah. Speaking of doing everything by hand,
coming in strong with those knuckles lately. I was familiar with him a while back when he was just doing a lot of blade work, and then I think he got connected with Billy Trident on Instagram, and they kind of they went over some knuckle work, and he's gotten deep into the knuckle world, which is cool.
They're like shurikens. People really they're iconic. People love them.
They do. Yeah. No, they very much so. I see Terry, like he's cranking those. Like he's got serious demand for that product.
Yeah, I'm constantly referring people to him because if someone asked me about knuckle dusters, I'm like, hey, check out Terry's stuff. And not that I don't like them, but oftentimes I'm buried with other stuff, or I don't feel like making them at the time.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
great
just
guy,
one of
though.
those things. I saw that Jason, the knife thrower.
Oh yeah, Jason Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he's a cool guy. I've had a couple of conversations with him on the phone. I haven't met him in person, but I made him a knife. It was actually one of the first knives I made. It's, 3 years ago.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah,
Okay,
he's
it was
definitely
presumably a throwing knife.
Yeah, it was pretty big though. It was an 18-inch Tonto straight, the brass guard, believe with G10 handles. I just made it solid. I think I made it out of 80 CRV2. Yeah, he's unable to break it, so that stuff's pretty rugged. I don't like the way it etches though. It's kind of weird. Yeah.
Yeah, that's sort of that Tonto for throwing knives is very. He seems to have taken to that form quite well.
Yeah,
I think he was probably not making then when you made him that.
No, I don't think so. But he is now. Seen some of the ones that he's making. It seems like a spear point or a dagger would be the best for throwing.
Yeah, just for more edges in general, more points.
Yeah, just the geometry of the tip. It's for piercing.
Right.
I think he made a comment on a video that was funny. He said something about you can throw anything with a point. A pair of needle nose pliers, anything.
Right. Yeah, he's been in the shop a couple times, and we've talked about combat throwing, and his he was like, well, if you just want to hurt somebody and like take them down, it doesn't really matter. Like whatever you're throwing, as long as it like hits them really hard with some sort of point, like you did the thing. That's what's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
If they fall down, you did good.
I think shurikens, I'm pretty sure they're not intended to be lethal or even close to lethal. It's more like a distraction. Say, like if you're a ninja or an assassin and you want to strike someone who has a weapon, you toss a shuriken at their face, and while they're wrapped up with that, then you strike with the sword.
Yeah, I kind of thought about that. I was like, these don't seem that lethal.
No, it'd be pretty. You'd have to have a really, really heavy.
Like, unless you hit someone right in the neck or something like that.
Yeah, hit him in the jugular. Yeah, but definitely a katana or a sword will do the trick. It's like following, like a jab, throwing a jab to hide the haymaker behind it.
So earlier, you've ground double edge. I've seen you make full size, like I don't know, broadswords or something. They're double edged daggers. That's insane. So that's another 24-inch grind times 2.
Or four bevels.
Or 4, yeah.
Yeah, I need to figure out how to grind something. The ones that I've made are just straight all the way down, and then I need to figure out like I look at the way the Cast brothers are doing their blades, and they have these really intricate shapes, and the bevels are so that's the way they flow. I need to take some time off, just take a month and clear everything out, and just sit down and figure out how to grind something like that. Just practice.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the needed mental reset sometimes to really, look at the process all over again and figure out how to change it for your benefit or for some new outcomes.
Yeah, because if you get buried with orders and you're doing the same thing over and over that you've already done, then I would imagine you're ultimately getting better at what you're doing, but you're not really trying anything new.
Mm-hmm.
The explorative kind of goes away.
Yeah. If you're working and 10 hours in the shop, and at the end of the 10 hours you weren't really aware of what you were doing, I think that's kind of a problem. Like maybe you should take a step back and try something different where you're more involved.
Well, I do that a lot. I just go in there and then I'll come home and my dad's like, "Oh, what'd you get done today?" I don't know stuff. I just worked until I went home.
And spent 10 hours hand sanding.
Yeah, like, what did you do though? Like, I don't know. Things got done though. You'll see tomorrow. I did stuff. So
it got done.
Productive.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it was productive day. I don't know what I did, but stuff got done.
It's a really common theme in podcasts I've noticed with, especially knife making podcasts, are like, what are your least favorite and most favorite materials, and also different aspects of knife making, like hand sanding or grinding. What are your least and most favorite?
I
Do
don't
you
mind
have?
hand sanding. I don't like grinding.
Yeah.
I like the result of my grinds.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just too like anal and OCD about my grinds that I hate doing it because I know I'm gonna get in there and like the first 90% I don't mind. It's that last 10% getting the plunge lines lined up and not
Mm-hmm.
only lined up, but a lot of guys will look if they're lined up. Then a lot of guys don't look if they're similar arcs side to side. Sometimes you'll get a knife and you look at it, and it happens on mine too once in a while. And just at a certain point, I can't touch it up, but it'll
Yeah.
be an arc, a nice even gradual arc on one side, and then the other side, it's a straight line that arcs off there. Grind and
Uh-oh.
try to make them the same until you're like, oh, I'm just gonna fuck it up if I keep going. This is the best this one's gonna be. And
Yeah,
then
I've not made any folders yet, but I could see how you could definitely chase the plunge line all the way back to the pivot.
yep, and then also most of the stuff I do is compound ground tantos. I don't really grind anything that's less than 6 bevels per blade, so that's not
Mhm.
really that easy on the small knives either. There's a lot of compounding lines that have to be nice side to side, and
Yeah.
I wish I was more lenient about it, but I'm not, so it makes me hate doing it.
Yeah, well, you really have to be hard on yourself. I mean, and no one else is going to be, so you got
I
to
haven't
push
scrapped
yourself.
one forever. Usually, I'll. It's the problem is my dad's like, well, he'll walk in there. He's like, "You grind the blade yet?" Because once I grind it, he does the acid wash or the tumble or sandblast, whatever has to get done with it. If it's not a set and grind, he's like, "You
Mhm.
done?" I was like, "No." He's like, "The last one took you an hour." I'm like, "Yeah, well, sometimes." That last 10% could take me 2 hours just for that 10%. If I fuck up and not to scrap it, I'll have to really slowly chase it, and that's when things suck. Because when
Yeah,
I finish that knife, I don't want to go on to the next one. I'm like, this sucks.
the trick is just to not become conscious of what you're doing while you're doing it, because that's every time I fuck up, it's because like I'll make a really slight error, and then all of a sudden I'm really conscious of what I'm doing. I'm overthinking, and then I just fuck everything up. It's almost like I just need to lock up and go home for the day and reset.
Yeah, I don't. I used to that was back in the day when I used to grind 1 or 2 blades at a time. Now I'm grinding 10 at a time, so it's like halfway. Once I get the rhythm, I'm just kind of blasting through it, and then sometimes because I'm blasting through, I'm like, I just get too confident, and then like, I overshot something. Okay,
Yeah.
I got to go back on the other side and now chase it to make it look like the side I fucked up, which is usually not a fuck up. It's more like I just overblasted it, and now I have to make the other side match back up to it again.
Modified, right?
Yeah, it's not like I want the grind to be this high and the plunge to stop here, and I'll get it right on the first side, and then I'll fuck up on the second side. So that means I have to go grind the third bevel because I got to go redo the first side again. That's already been done at the proper grit.
Have you ever actually come up with a design via fuck up like that?
Not in the folder days. But back when I was making kitchen knives and fixed blades, yeah, all the time.
Yeah, learn from your
But
fuck ups.
folders, usually if that happens, you end up making something that has a weird blade to handle ratio.
It's like one thing can't like once you fuck up one thing, like you start chasing lines and like it all overlaps and all the fuck ups compound, and then you can't like save the work.
You make a paperweight.
That happens in CAD too. Like, yeah.
The only time that ever happened to me in folders that made a design is the micro. So I make the MK1, which is 3 1/4, and then the micro is the same knife, 2.5 inches, but it's just scaled down, so it's shorter and narrower and thinner. But the first micro, it never got done. But the idea for it was I messed up MK1. I ground it shorter, but it was the same width because I couldn't make because of the lock bar and everything. I couldn't make it narrower, and the stock was the stock. I couldn't make it thinner, so I just made it shorter. And I was like, I like the size, but it looked like a chode because it was almost as wide as it was long. And I was like, it doesn't look good. So I went into CAD and then made the ratios right. That's what first gave me that design was when I was modifying that one.
Yeah. Chode, that's a great name for a knife.
There's a few knives out there called chodes.
Chode. Yeah.
And even that one, I couldn't finish it because by the time I ground the handle shorter to match that blade, there was like no meat left that was holding up the lock bar still.
Yeah, chasing it to death.
Yeah, so that's why in the folder stuff that doesn't really happen often. Maybe back in the day, I had a knife that like I was grinding and I ground a little too thin, and maybe I reshaped it to be a recurve looking thing. I haven't done that in like 8 years, but That was maybe at most what a folder that could have done. But it had to be enough to where I could make it look good. I probably did it like 3 times, 2 times maybe.
Yeah.
And then you try to recurve it and it doesn't look good, and then you scrap it, or maybe that 1 or 2 or 3 times that I did it looked good and I left it.
Yeah, you either win or you learn, right? That's what they say. Wiser men than me have said that anyway.
Yeah, even if it's a fuck up, you can't sell it unless it looks right, though.
No.
Keeping it won't pay the bills.
Just make yourself a folding throwing knife for the shop.
Yeah. The amount of handles and blades that I have in my shop that are like half scrap, it's like, oh, like I'll take all these scrap parts and finally make me a knife to carry and use and beat up, and that never happens. And at this point, I could probably build like 10 that'll actually work, but there are things that are off that I can't sell about them.
Mm-hmm.
There's parts for hundreds that don't work, but about 10 that I could actually build.
Yeah, you should never let something go that you're not comfortable with. That will haunt you for the rest of your life. To know there's something out there floating around.
It's not that it's out there; it's that eventually someone else that guy will resell it, and the next guy will find the issue what that guy didn't notice or didn't care about, and you'll inevitably get an email asking to fix something or refurb something, and you see the knife that you didn't want out in the first place, like somehow try to make its way back to you, and you have to work on it, and then you're like, I just want to build this guy a new knife.
Yeah, we'll do it. Why not?
Well, I haven't had that, but I've known of makers. I was in those positions. Thankfully, I didn't have to. Where guys were just they weren't in the best financial moment, and they were like, I just have to sell this knife. I have to send it out. A lot of guys were doing that when they were first starting out. But it always comes back to bite you in the ass for what I just explained. Eventually, someone is going to get it that figures out what was wrong with it, or didn't like that what you didn't like about it either. And then you eventually get it back a year or 2 years from now, and then you're like, oh, I'm just gonna build a guy a new knife.
Yeah, like the feeling of making a knife for another knife maker. Yeah, that's something
I love doing that.
Ugh.
There's usually a dick inside of those knives.
I made Chris.
8 knives floating around with dicks in them.
I made Chris from Pariah Knives. I don't know if you guys know Chris. He's a great guy. I did a trade with him. I made him a Wakizashi, but man, I was losing sleep over that. Just, sending something to a knife maker who I really respect, and I really appreciate
Did he make you a knife too?
I'm sorry?
Did he make you a knife too as well?
Yeah, he made me the Oni. It's the name of it. Yeah. I ordered a big, you get to Damasteel. If you custom order, you have to buy a meter length. So I ordered a meter of the pattern that's called Moonin, and I sawed off 10 inches of that, sent it to him, and he made me that, and we did a swap.
Oh yeah. He's a great maker.
Yeah, he has a very similar style.
Super cool guy too. You guys should have him on the podcast. He has a background in art. Yeah, super cool lines.
Everybody kind of vibes on the same wavelength.
Yeah, he definitely cares about what he's doing. It shows.
Like what you're working on, what's the future looking like? Any shows that might happen towards the end of the year?
That's something I really need to get into. I want to go to Blade in Atlanta this year. It's been put off till August, right?
Yeah. Yep. If it happens, I mean, who knows?
I think if I end up going, I'll just go as a spectator. I really just want to meet all the people who I know virtually, and just to gather inspiration by looking at people's work, because there's so many talented makers out there. It must be overwhelming to be around thousands of incredible knives like that.
It's a real trip. It's a fun weekend.
It either humbles you, makes you feel like you don't know what you're doing, or it makes you realize you're not charging enough.
Yeah,
those are usually the 3 things that you walk out of that room with. It's like, wow, these guys are doing this for less than I am. I can't believe that. Like, I should just quit. And then when you walk 2 tables down, you're like, this guy's doing this for this much. Wow, I should be charging more. Or usually everyone comes by and like they'll like your work, they don't like your work, and then you leave, and then you kind of humbles you. It's a lot going on in that show to where it's like you could walk around and feel completely differently about your career.
And there's probably a lot of snobbery in the folder world, huh?
Yeah. I think that's in every community. That's just human. behavior, essentially.
Yeah, I haven't really experienced anything negative yet. And so far, my experience has been 100% positive.
You get a maker, or it doesn't matter what, if it's a knife or a spoon or whatever it is. You tell him his shit don't stink and he makes the best product ever. He's eventually going to think his shit don't stink and he makes the best product ever.
Yeah. Yeah. If someone tells you you're awesome a million times, you're going to start believing it. Like, you know, I think humility is definitely a virtue.
Yeah.
You got to stay humble.
You can't get
Must.
the ego tripping.
Yeah, it's not cool. Not cool. I think your work would suffer if you ever got to that point. You're resting on your laurels or believing the hype.
Yeah, once you start getting comfortable, it's not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could be on your toes.
Therapeutic discomfort. Like to stay there.
Yeah, it's important to continue evolving. You know, you always want to sort of bring the freshness to the table.
Absolutely. That's where the psychedelics come in, right?
That's exactly right.
Yep. Break
Speaking
the barrier.
Yeah, I need to go on a camping trip and do the all-inclusive trip.
Well, that was my plan. And then I was like, it might not be a good idea to do that during COVID and start spiraling.
Yeah, when you think it's not a good idea, that's oftentimes the best time to do it. Yep. Yeah.
So you start thinking about it, you start spiraling. It's like, you start looking around. There's like people without masks around you.
Yeah, we go out into the woods where there's no one around.
That's the best place.
Always woods.
Everywhere here where you think there's no people is where the people are, because they think no one else is there as well.
It's a conspiracy. They're following you.
I went fishing last week to a spot where I know no one's usually ever at, because it's kind of a pain in the ass to get to, and it was packed. I was like, this has never happened before, because everyone that kind of knows that spot that rarely goes there is like, oh, no one's there. I'm gonna go there, and everyone was fucking there that day.
Yeah, the more difficult a place is to get to, the better time you're going to have anyway. So just go where no one wants to go or no one can go. Maybe just get lost.
You pretty much described my house.
Yeah, getting lost.
No one wants to go here, no one can go here.
Right on.
So on that note, I'm gonna start signing off. So Nick Churban of NCC Knives. You can find me at nccknives.com or NCC Knives on Instagram.
Elijah Isham, Isham Bladeworks. You can find me on Instagram at Isham Bladeworks.
And this is Jeremiah Burbank. You can find me at my day job, PVK Vegas, on Instagram. This has been another awesome episode of Bladeology. Dave, I want to thank you so much for coming on and taking time out of your day to come hang out with us, man.
Absolutely. It's been an honor. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Where can people find you?
You could find me on Instagram at Vasana Bladeworks. I don't really have a Facebook presence. So yeah.
Killer. Well, we will definitely link that. And like I said, thanks so much, man.
Yeah. It's been an honor. Have a good night.
Right on.
And I swear to God, I was gone for a week.
Was it like really visually intense?
Yeah, I had a whole I thought I was a college professor. Like I thought I was in college and like a college professor. Like I had a whole different
kind of makes you wonder about like parallel universes or parallel realities. If you're able to slip into something like that and have a real vivid experience of another life, and it's something you've never experienced or never heard of, yet you are experiencing it.
A sub-reality.
But those stronger ones, that ideal fades. Like you could only picture for like a quick moment after, but like 2 days later, it's like you lost 95% of what happened.
You got to write it down.
Let's all do bong hits of salvia right now.
You got to remember your pen. Don't forget your pen.
But yeah, in order for DMT to be
And then
orally
the,
active, you
the
have
MAO
to
inhibitor.
do a monoamine oxidase inhibitor. And that, the ayahuasca vine is actually that. So it's called Banisteriopsis caapi. So it's
Apparently,
Yeah,
when
it's
taken that way, I guess you like it's like a
it's
slow
different.
build
It's
instead of like
the
being shot
visuals
off by a
are
slingshot.
totally different. I mean, I understand that it's the same compound, but the experience is very different. I would equate it to like a mushroom trip in duration, intensity, and whatnot.
Have you watched the Spirit Molecule,
Yes.
the documentary?
Yeah, I read that book a
about
long time ago,
Strauss?
Straussman's book. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. It's
Good stuff.
yeah. It's not. If you're not into it, the read it reads like a scientific text.
I know it was hard to read that,
Mhm.
but I kind of felt I needed to understand it. So
Yeah, if you're fascinated with the topic, it's worth the read for sure. Terrence McKenna's books are really good too. The Food of the Gods,
Oh, yeah.
True Hallucinations, The Archaic Revival. Those are really, really good books.
yeah, I haven't read all of those. I need to.
Yeah, what a fascinating
Get up
guy
on
that
it.
guy was. He was brilliant.
McKenna.
Yes.
Yeah, I named a knife after him actually.
Yeah. Which one?
The McKenna.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.